So, with both conference finals wrapping up, we have a little break from NBA basketball. So, I thought I'd answer a Twitter thread of 20 NBA questions on a variety of topics. So, with that being said, let's get right into it. Or I think it's actually 19 questions, but whatever. First question: if Chris Paul wins a ring and Finals MVP, is he a top 3 point guard ever? And this is a tough question. Obviously, I think the top 2 point guards are Magic and Steph, and Chris Paul isn't surpassing them with a ring. And then it gets pretty close. You have guys like Oscar Robertson and Isaiah Thomas, who I'd say are the main two candidates for position number 3. Obviously, it depends on how well he performs. Like, if he's averaging like 30 and 15 and is just incredible, then it's a bit different than if he wins in 6 games and Giannis isn't healthy and he averages, let's say, 20 and 8 but still gets it. But I would probably just say no, because I think, it'd put him definitely in the conversation, but I think I'd still have to go with Oscar Robertson or Isaiah Thomas. Okay, second question. Is James Harden a top 2 floor raiser in the NBA? This is a tough question. I would say, my initial instinct is that LeBron James is definitely the best floor raiser in the NBA, but he is a bit older and he can't really carry that load anymore. And then you're looking to guys like Giannis, who is great, but I'm going to agree with this. I think James Harden, in terms of, especially offensively, where it might have been a bit more extreme a couple years ago, but still now, his isolation basketball is just absolutely incredible, and he doesn't really need other teammates. Maybe he needs a big man to screen, but really just needs spacing, and he can carry a team offensively to the playoffs almost alone. So I would agree that James Harden is a top 2 floor raiser in the NBA. Okay, next question. Who will end up having a better career, Zion or Jayson Tatum? Another tough question. I should stop saying that because they're all tough questions. I'm going to go with Jayson Tatum because I think it's the safer pick, to be honest. Less injury prone. Zion, a lot heavier. His body type, his play style just makes him prone to injuries. Whereas Tatum, I think, he's a sure two-way player. His jump shot's not going anywhere. His scoring ability isn't going anywhere. I would say Zion has the higher ceiling, but I'm going to go with Tatum because it's a safer pick. Okay, who's higher all time, Kobe or Tim Duncan? Very, very close, but I'm going to have to go with Tim Duncan. I think, obviously both of them are super consistent, but I think Duncan, more impactful defensive player, and then if we're talking all time, more rings as the best player, 2 MVPs to 1. So I'm going to go with Tim Duncan, but this is really, really close. Another all-time question, who's higher all-time, Hakeem or Shaq? I'm going to go with Shaq on this one. I think more dominant at his peak, which you could say Shaq is the most dominant peak player ever. Just how unstoppable he was, winning 3 straight Finals MVPs. Obviously Hakeem did 2, but had 2 in a row. But I'm going to go with Shaq just because of the dominance, and he has 4 rings to Hakeem's 2, which in all time does matter. Next question. What are your honest thoughts on Rudy Gobert? I like Gobert. I think he is probably the most impactful defender in the NBA in the regular season. Just his ability to protect the rim adds so much value. He can turn a bad defensive team into, one of the 5 best defenses in the NBA, as we saw with the Jazz, where, apart from Gobert, they're not a good defensive team. Obviously, they have guys like Conley and Royce O'Neal, but Gobert is really their everything defensively. But I think he's also a player who's prone to being a bit worse in the playoffs, just because, he can't, if a team is going 5 out, he can struggle a little bit, and he can struggle if he gets switched onto the perimeter. But I still think he's an all-star level player, almost just off his defense alone. Yeah. Next one. Garnett, Dirk, and Duncan, start, bench, cut. I'm going to start Tim Duncan, best player here, I think. And I'm going to have to bench Kevin Garnett and cut Dirk. Again, three very good power forwards. The reason I went with my order is that I think Duncan is just the best player overall. And then my reasoning for Kevin Garnett over Dirk is I think Garnett is a better defender. Well, he is. And I just like that two-way ability when we're comparing players who are very close. Also, I think Garnett, I don't know if this is modern NBA, but his game in terms of how good a defender he was, but also a switchy, athletic defender. And then also offensively, he was hitting those long twos in his career, and I have no doubt if he played in the modern NBA, he could be a very good three-point shooter out pick and pops and things like that. So, yeah. Will Steph Curry win another championship in his career? Unfortunately, I'm going to have to go with no. I think that's probably the safer bet, and that's what the odds say. My reasoning is actually his loyalty to Golden State. I think Steph Curry is a player who could play in the NBA for a very, very long time, just off his shooting alone. But I think he's going to be a player who wants to spend his whole career in Golden State. And when you're with one team, it's tough to win a lot of championships, which he's already done, but also in different iterations of the team. So, if he wasn't so loyal to Golden State, I could easily see him go join the Nets in like 5 years or something, if he's still playing then. But if he's a Golden State lifer, then I think it's going to be tough for the Warriors to win a championship, just as it's tough for any team to win a championship. Okay, next question. Who is the biggest what if they never got hurt in NBA history? I mean, a lot of good options. Unfortunately, injuries are just part of the game. My initial thought is Derrick Rose. Just how he was the youngest MVP in league history, a very electrifying player. There's obviously a ton of guys, and I don't really feel like spending too long on this question, so I'm just going to say Derrick Rose. Okay. Where would Wilt rank among centers in today's NBA? A prime Wilt, probably number one. Just how dominant and unstoppable he was. And, obviously the competition was a lot weaker, but I still think he'd be massively physically dominant. I think his game would be a bit different. Probably a few less post-ups, a few more screens, but I think just his overall athleticism, with some of the advantages of the modern NBA, like strength and conditioning, and also proper coaching and defensive schemes. Yeah, if his personality didn't get in the way, I think he'd be the best center in the NBA. If I'm going more conservative, number 3 behind Jokic and Embiid. Who would you rather have, Trae Young or Kyrie Irving? I think it depends. If I want a number 1 option, I think I'm going to go with Trae Young, mainly because he's a better playmaker, and I feel he's a better at a on-ball role. But if I want a number 2 or number 3 option, I'm going to go with Kyrie because he's a better off-ball player, can score on all 3 levels. But if I had to answer, I'm going to go with Kyrie Irving because I think you can win a championship with Kyrie Irving as your second best player, and I'm not sure if you can win a championship with Trae Young as your best player. Obviously, maybe you can with the right circumstances, but it's a lot harder than winning a championship with Kyrie as your second best player. Who's higher all time, Harden or Chris Paul? This is tough. I think probably Chris Paul, just because of the longevity and how he's turned so many bad teams into good teams, like just the record turnaround once he gets there. Also, maybe I'm just clouded by this postseason run, but if he wins a championship, I think it's definitely Chris Paul. So, yeah, I'm going to say Chris Paul over Harden all time. Agree or disagree, you can't win a championship with Russell Westbrook as your starting point guard. I think you can definitely win a championship with Russell Westbrook as your starting point guard. I mean, they almost did it in 2012, so yeah. Obviously, Russell Westbrook, I think what this person is getting at asking this question is Russell Westbrook isn't really a player suited to be a number 2 or number 3 option, and he's just not good enough to be the best player on a championship team. But I think, obviously you could, let's say, hypothetically, this would never happen if the Wizards and the Nets swapped Kyrie for Russell Westbrook. I think the Nets could win the championship. with Russell Westbrook, Harden, and KD if they're all healthy. So, yes, I think you can win a championship with Russell Westbrook as your starting point guard. Who's higher all time, James Harden or Allen Iverson? I might get a bit of stick for this one, but I think it's James Harden. I think obviously neither of them have a championship. Both won finals appearance, but Allen Iverson's much more impressive in 2001. But I think the amount of times Harden has been either 1 or 2 in the MVP race, and the amount of times he's got his Rockets to the Western Conference Finals. I think, the 2018 Rockets, if Chris Paul doesn't get hurt, they could easily be NBA champions. So, yeah, I'm going to go with James Harden over Allen Iverson. Agree or disagree, the Sixers need to trade Ben Simmons in order to win a championship. I'm going to disagree. I don't think they need to. I think it could help and could be beneficial, but then again, if they're trading Ben Simmons for CJ McCollum, are they really going to be able to beat the Brooklyn Nets or the Lakers or the Clippers next year? Yeah, that's a tough question, but probably not. So I think the Sixers' best option right now might actually be to hold on to Ben Simmons and try and get his trade value back up, because if you're trading him at his lowest point, it's not worth it. But maybe you keep Ben Simmons for this year, he plays better, the Sixers make the conference finals and lose to the Nets, and then Dame is a year older and wants out, or Beal wants out, and then you can maybe trade him for a player who can help you win a championship more than Ben Simmons can. So, but yeah, I don't think they need to trade him to win a championship, though it could help the Sixers. Agree or disagree, Carmelo Anthony is one of the most overrated players ever. I'm going to disagree. I think one of the most overrated players ever. I think there's more overrated players than Carmelo Anthony. In fact, I don't even know if Carmelo Anthony is overrated anymore. I think that has sort of died down. He was obviously a very, very good scorer, but didn't do much else. And there's been a ton of players like that over the course of NBA history, thinking guys like Bernard King, Dominique Wilkins, a lot of players like that in the mid-2000s. But yeah, I don't think Carmelo Anthony is one of the most overrated players ever. I think maybe he's a little bit overrated, but certainly not at the top, certainly not anymore. And then the final question, who is more important to the Lakers three-peat, Kobe or Shaq? I mean, this is easily Shaq, if we're being honest. Won all 3 finals MVPs and just turned it on in the playoffs. Like, you can look at the stats, like 30 and 15, cannot be stopped. I think Kobe was definitely needed to win the three-peat, though. Obviously, late game, because of Shaq's free throws, he couldn't always be out there or trusted. And then just a ton of clutch shots over the years. I can't remember every example, but I know there was a game against the Pacers in the finals where Shaq fouled out. Obviously helped them come back against the Blazers, I think also in 2000, and was like massive the whole year in 2001. So yeah, obviously both very important, couldn't happen without both of them, but I think Shaq was more important. But anyways, thanks for watching this video, guys. Leave a like, subscribe to this channel for more NBA content, and I'll see you guys next time.